Tonight,
there's been much made about this question of intelligence and imminence.
The Secretary of State defends the decision to kill one of Iran's top military generals. A look at the continuing fallout in the Middle East. Plus,
there are some lights still on.
Puerto Rico plunged into darkness after 2 earthquakes shake the U.S. territory. And
should we take the kids to church tomorrow, or should we just live stream this?
With attacks on houses of worship on the rise, churches wrestle with how to keep their congregations safe. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
The Trump administration giving new details behind the killing of Qasem Soleimani. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Jenna Browder.
And I'm John Jessup. Top administration officials went before the cameras today defending the decision to take out Iran's top military leader.
This as lawmakers go back and forth on whether it was the right move and what comes next. Full Faith Nation coverage tonight. Ben Kennedy is on Capitol Hill.
But we begin with national security correspondent Eric Phillips. Eric, we're learning more tonight about what the administration has been calling an imminent threat Soleimani posed to America.
John, that's right. For the first time, an administration official actually qualified how imminent the threat was, calling it days away. Meanwhile, rhetoric of revenge is flowing from Iran, and so is massive mourning, some of which turned deadly. High emotions in a multitude of thousands led to a stampede Tuesday in Soleimani's hometown of Kerman. Dozens killed and hundreds injured. Meanwhile, halfway around the world, Secretary of Defense Mark Esper is putting a fine point on the threat Soleimani posed to the United States.
The attack Soleimani was planning, was that days or weeks away?
I think it's more fair to say days, for sure.
In a separate news conference, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo underscored the Trump administration's decision to take action on Soleimani.
It's the right decision. We got it right. If you're looking for imminence, you needn't look no further than the days that led up to the strike that was taken against Soleimani.
Iranian lawmakers passed an urgent bill declaring the U.S. military's command terrorists, chanting "Death to America, no compromise, no surrender, revenge." And that is exactly what Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif says will be carried out in the open, quote, "at a time it hurts most."
We don't carry cowardly acts of terror like the United States. I'm sure that it will be taken at the time of our choosing, not at the time of the United States choosing.
Zarif claims Soleimani was in Iraq on a diplomatic mission when a U.S. drone strike killed him near the airport.
Is there any history that would indicate that it was remotely possible that this kind gentleman, this diplomat of great order, Qasem Soleimani, had traveled to Baghdad for the idea of conducting a peace mission? We know that wasn't true. We not only know the history, we know in that moment that was not true.
Tonight, questions remain over a leaked, confusing memo from the Pentagon regarding U.S. troops in Iraq. It seems to imply measures are being taken to ensure troop movement out of Iraq is safe and efficient. But Secretary of Defense Mark Esper says there has been no decision to pull troops out of Iraq, even though the Iraqi parliament voted to kick them out. John and Jenna.
All right, Eric, thank you. And let's go to Ben Kennedy, who is on Capitol Hill. Ben, what are you hearing in the halls of Congress?
Well, Jenna, Democrats say President Trump shouldn't have taken action against Soleimani without coming to Congress first. Lawmakers agree that he was a bad guy, a terrorist, and was behind the killing of Americans. But some have stopped short if taking him out was the answer.
I've grown increasingly concerned about the strike against Soleimani and what it might mean for the safety of American troops in the region and the future of America's involvement in the Middle East.
Iran has been at war with the United States for years. While they have taken pains to avoid direct conflict, Iran's authoritarian regime has shown no compunction about kidnapping, torturing, and killing Americans since its earliest days.
Now, Democrats feel Soleimani's death will not make Americans safer and could result in an escalation of violence in the region, even drag the U.S. into a war in the Middle East, something President Trump promised he would not do. Some here on Capitol Hill feel the capture of Soleimani would have been a better solution. Now, lawmakers are looking to debate the matter and discuss limiting President Trump's power to conduct future strikes. John, Jenna?
Ben, what's the president's response to the debate about potentially limiting his war powers?
John, the White House insists there is less danger with Soleimani gone. President Trump just fielded questions in the Oval Office moments ago. Take a listen.
We saved a lot of lives by terminating his life. A lot of lives are saved. They were planning something, and you're going to be hearing about it, or at least various people in Congress are going to be hearing about it tomorrow.
Today, the Secretary of State, Defense Secretary, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and CIA Director will brief the Gang of Eight, which does include House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Representative Adam Schiff, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. They will present classified intel that the U.S. says it had on Soleimani's plot to attack American targets, evidence to back up President Trump's decision to strike. John, Jenna?
Ben, this is turning out to be a big issue on the campaign trail. What are the 2020 candidates saying?
Well, today we did hear from former Vice President Joe Biden, who called the president's decision dangerously incompetent and reckless, and even pushed back on his decision not to consult Congress before taking action.
Donald Trump does not have, let me make it clear, does not have the authority to go to war with Iran without congressional authorization. Without working with Congress. It is not optional. It is not an optional part of his job. Presidential notification of Congress about the need to exercise war powers cannot be satisfied in 280 characters or less.
Biden is talking about the president's tweets after the strike. He called the attack a strategic setback and destroyed any progress made by the Obama-Biden administration. John, Jenna?
And CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem. Chris, why was Soleimani so feared, and what was his master plan for the Middle East?
Well, he was feared, John and Jenna, because he was one of the arch terrorists here in the Middle East. And one of his master plans was actually to surround the Israeli state, the Jewish state, with proxy enemies. Hezbollah on the north, Hamas and Islamic Jihad on the south. He was using the vacuum of the Syrian civil war to have Shiite militias there inside Syria. And then the latest he was doing was providing ballistic missiles, sophisticated missiles, to Shiite militias inside Iraq that threatened U.S. servicemen and women. What he did not only was against the Jewish state, but the other plan was to drive the United States out of the region. And that's why a couple of weeks ago there were rockets into one of the U.S. bases there, killed an American contractor. When the U.S. retaliated, then that's when the attack against the U.S. Embassy began. And we see now, after the killing of Soleimani on Friday, now the situation is increased exponentially. But that was his master plan: drive the U.S. out of the region, surround the Jewish state, and eventually destroy Israel.
Chris, Iran's threats of revenge has prompted the State Department to issue travel warnings to overseas citizens, telling them to keep a low profile. What kind of reaction are you seeing there in Israel and the surrounding region?
Well, one of those alerts has been here in Israel as well. They're warning Americans not to go to the West Bank, which is just a few blocks away from here, actually, in the old city of Jerusalem. If you were here in Jerusalem, you wouldn't notice anything different from a few days ago, but there is added alert by the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, up there on the Golan Heights, next to where Iranian proxy forces are right across the border. And we are seeing just an increase of a sense here in Israel that things could happen. However, having said that, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is telling his ministers not to say anything, don't talk about this. They do say that the United States has permission to go ahead and defend itself, but they don't want to be seen as working with the United States in this particular attack. And also, I'd add, John and Jenna, I talked to an Israeli not too long ago, earlier today, and he said the West really seems to see the millions of people out in the streets and the threats, the rhetoric by the Iranian regime, and they sort of cower and get afraid about that. And he says they need to realize that the Iranian regime has a lot to lose here, and if they really have a direct confrontation with the United States, they risk the regime at all that it could fall.
Yeah, well, thousands of people were in the streets mourning the loss of Soleimani, but there are people there celebrating too, Chris, right?
Exactly, and you know, just thousands of people were in the streets not too long ago, before the killing of Soleimani, protesting the Iranian government inside Tehran. There were thousands inside Baghdad protesting the Iranian presence inside Iraq. There were thousands of people inside Beirut in Lebanon protesting the Iranian influence there in Lebanon. So throughout the Middle East, there's a lot of sentiment or celebration right now about Soleimani's death. Inside Iran, there's tweets, there's people celebrating. You won't see that on the streets because that could be a death sentence for somebody. But underneath the surface of these millions of people on the street, you know there's a great deal of a sentiment that's celebrating Soleimani's death rather than mourning him.
Chris, earlier this morning, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo defended the administration's decision to strike against Soleimani, saying that there was an imminent attack. The Israelis are known for uncovering Iranian covert plans. Have they corroborated any of that or issued any of their own intelligence?
Well, they haven't done that publicly, John, and I don't think you'd expect to hear anything like that. But there is a lot of cooperation between Israel and the United States. Pompeo has been talking to Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. So even though publicly they're saying they don't want to be seen as allied or sort of that this was an Israeli-U.S. operation, you know behind the scenes that there's really a lot of intelligence that Israel can share with the United States to do an operation like this. And certainly they're on the same page about the threat of Iran and what they need to do all over this region to protect U.S. interests, protect the Jewish state, and protect the whole region from the expansion of Iranian influence.
CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, always good to have you. Thank you.
Majority Leader Mitch McConnell looks like he's ready to move forward with a Senate impeachment trial, even without an agreement with Democrats on witness testimony. He made the announcement today after meeting with Senate Republicans. The move comes after he secured votes to block Democrats if they try to call additional witness testimony. Yesterday, both Maine Senator Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska announced they backed the plan to defer witnesses until after the trial begins. However, the Senate has yet to receive articles of impeachment from the House.
Nearly 3 weeks after the rush vote they claim was so urgent, they are still debating whether or not they even want to see the trial proceed. One cynical political game right on top of another.
GOP leadership is trying to get consensus among Republicans about how to move forward.
Coming up, earthquakes rattle Puerto Rico. How many and where they fell on the Richter scale.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, to lead, just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Well, nerves are still rattled in Puerto Rico after 2 major earthquakes in as many days. The latest this morning when a 6.4 magnitude quake rocked the island.
At least 1 person is dead, but there could be more as collapsed buildings and homes are searched. Puerto Rico in a state of emergency. This morning, a 6.4 magnitude earthquake rocking the island, followed by a string of aftershocks.
I could hear cracks, my house, everything started falling over.
Tonight, most are still without power, with officials shutting down the island's vulnerable power grid.
Power in my room here in Old San Juan is out.
And the governor now calling in the National Guard. This quake came just a day after another 5.8 magnitude earthquake. Homes and buildings knocked off their foundations, downed power lines, and this famous landmark, the Punta Venta rock formation, destroyed. Both quakes are part of a 10-day outbreak of tremors, spawned by the grinding of plates along 3 fault lines beneath southern Puerto Rico. Seismologists say it's impossible to predict when the quakes will stop or whether they'll get stronger. And President Trump has been briefed on the situation. The administration released a statement today saying FEMA is working with the governor of Puerto Rico and will continue to monitor the effects and lend support.
Turning to natural disasters on the other side of the world, 24 people in Australia have been charged with intentionally setting fires, contributing to those devastating wildfires there. More than 24 people have been killed and thousands of homes destroyed. Firefighters are working to put out the flames, many unsure when they'll see relief.
Either when the good Lord opens up the heavens and gives us weeks of rain, or it burns to the coastline. It's really the only options. It is too large to put out. Anything that we're doing just isn't working, and that's with all the aircraft as well. We can slow it down, but yeah, very hard to stop.
Australia's hottest and driest year on record helped to fuel the wildfires, the first of which started all the way back in September. We'll be back right after the break.
Daddy?
Yeah, buddy?
How many nickels are in $1?
There are 20 nickels in $1.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts, in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain. Get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
Facebook is cracking down on deep fakes. Those are the videos that use artificial intelligence to make it look like the subject is saying words they haven't actually said. Facebook says it'll remove videos where the technology has been used, saying in a blog post, quote, "While these videos are still rare on the internet, they present a significant challenge for our industry and society as their use increases." Experts warn deepfake videos could be used to mislead voters In the lead up to the 2020 election, Facebook has been criticized in the past for its failure to stop the spread of misinformation.
Well, another group recently under fire, the Department of Homeland Security, for not doing enough to guarantee the safety of people of faith. The acting DHS chief is now directing his agency to review an internal report with recommendations on how to prevent violence against religious groups, like last month's attacks at a Texas church and a Hanukkah celebration in New York. The report proposes a new leadership post to oversee faith-based programs, more consistent training for religious groups, and for Congress to increase grant money for faith-based groups to use to bolster their security.
Now, well, you mentioned the church shooting in Texas. America's churches are becoming more of a target in mass shootings and bomb plots.
So how will this change the way we worship, and what can churches do to protect their congregations?
Yeah, here's Chuck Holton.
June 19th, 2019, a Syrian refugee was arrested in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for plotting to blow up a local church. His intent was to inspire other church attacks in the name of ISIS. Former FBI agent Mark Lundgren warns that an attack like this could have far-reaching consequences.
If 2 or 3 successful attacks on churches occur, what we're going to see is a conversation over the dinner table on Saturday night. Honey, should we take the kids to church tomorrow, or should we just live stream this? And if you don't think that's going to impact the very ministry model of every church in America, you probably just haven't thought about it.
Many churches these days have some sort of security team, but Lundgren is working to help these teams network with those from other churches by starting the Secure Church Network, an association of church safety and security leaders who meet to share tips and tactics for keeping their congregations safe.
So what we want to do is create an environment where worry-free worship can occur.
At a recent Secure Church event near Chicago, several hundred attendees got a chance to do scenario-based training aimed at approaching security as a ministry. Former Secret Service agent Tim Miller led the training.
So church security is unique because the skills we need week after week are largely not firearm skills. They're skills like talking people down. We call it de-escalation. They're skills like dealing with mentally ill people. They're skills like understanding that people come into the church with a variety of addictions. And how we respond to them really matters because on the one hand, we want hurting people to come, but on the other hand, we want to keep the congregation safe.
You know, you're more likely to be struck by lightning than you are to be a victim of a mass shooter attack in a church. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be training and prepared for it. More likely, you're going to have a medical emergency or maybe a mentally ill person come into your church, and those kinds of things need to be prepared for as well. And that's why training like this is so important.
Let's pray that he is with us today.
Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
I think you just have to watch the news today, and you can tell that things are changing. There's just an expansion of these radical ideologies, mental health struggles, even anger against people of faith. And because the conditions are changing, I think leaders need to be more thoughtful than ever about how they really shepherd people, how we protect the flock that's under our care, and whether that means imposing new kinds of security protocols to help protect folks against bad actors, or whether it's just thinking through more carefully the practices by which we're going to be ready to give medical aid in a time of emergency. It feels like we have a responsibility that is even more intense than ever before.
What's the problem, ma'am?
The training included some unique tools, such as a high-tech virtual trainer that lets attendees experience dozens of different scenarios in a short period of time. It's the same method used by law enforcement.
Having those conversations ahead of time, doing some drilling. I know that our officers will come through here off hours so that way they can learn the layout much better and even do some training.
We want them ministry-minded but also highly skilled. Now, church security is different because, as you know, churches are welcoming, inviting places, and security tends to keep people away. So it's important that we train church security folks with the mindset of ministry.
I just don't know any church leader that wants their gatherings to start to feel like some kind of an armed encampment. But the good news, it seems to me, is that there are practical ways of increasing security in the life of a religious community or church without losing that sense that it is still a very warm and welcoming place.
Participants say they get a lot out of working together with other churches.
So we're part of Secure Church Chicago, and we attend these on a regular basis. They've been very impactful in helping us develop a plan and a strategy.
This is my second time attending a training here with Secure Church. So it was really informative. Even just making connections and networking with other churches was also a benefit to being here. But just having a facility to be able to do scenario-based training was the real advantage for us.
In Chicago, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Up next, how stranded sailors found comfort during a scary ordeal at sea. You're watching CBN's Faith Nation.
I am Regent's first ROTC graduate student.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
Finally tonight, new video of an amazing rescue at sea.
Yeah, that dramatic rescue operation coming by way of the U.S. Coast Guard. After his boat was damaged in a storm, Chattanooga, Tennessee native Pete Brown and 2 other sailors were stranded for 9 days in the Pacific Ocean. During that time, Brown says he looked up for comfort.
Watched the stars and prayed and hoped that either way my family was going to be okay.
The crew had to use mirrors to catch the attention of passing ships. They say they are grateful to be alive and reunited with their families.
You can tell they were at sea. He's got the dark skin and
the full-on beard.
It's rough out there. I can't even imagine.
That's right.
Well, that's going to do it for Faith Nation.
We'll see you again tomorrow.